everybody. Welcome back to the Frontend Coffee Break, the podcast where we take a break and chat about front-end technology. Here as well, Chucho Castañeda. How are you in this fine day?
Hello, Ricardo. All good. I am enjoying a little bit of coffee in a cup. That has been, I've been called out on using my Christmas cup still, even though it's not Christmas. I don't
But
care. I
but
love
it's
it.
Christmas somewhere, right? In some timeline, in some multiverse, there's probably Christmas at the same moment.
Maybe.
Anyway,
And you, how about you, Ricardo?
I'm doing very good. Recording today, it's fun, and the topic for today is very interesting. We're gonna try something different in this episode 16. We're gonna react to Rich Harris's video where he talks about the web frameworks, the edge. He published this video a couple of weeks ago, back in April, on a Svelte meetup in New York, and we thought that we could just react to his hot takes on some of the topics. We have opinions and we have also our takes, and we want to share our opinions. And hopefully, if Mr. Harris listens to this, he can
Oh,
leave a comment maybe or not. And it's fun because you Chucho, you play with his product day in, day out, right?
yes, it's Svelte is one of the frameworks out there that I like. And I'm gonna make a pun about the reacting. I mean, I don't know if we're going to reacting, angularing, or svelting. we're
Whoa,
gonna
okay.
view. We viewed the video and we're reacting,
Jesus. Okay.
giving our own angle to it.
Time to exit out. I'll see you next week.
Sorry.
Yes, for those who don't know, Rich Harris is the creator of Svelte, and yeah, we like Svelte. Svelte is fine. So I think the first topic that he presents on the video is this. He says your framework is fine in the context that, as you mentioned, there's Vue, there's React, there's Angular, there's many things out there, and the probably your chosen framework doesn't make much different. That's what he says. That we shouldn't take like too much effort in checking, okay, how many kilobytes am I delivering to the user, how many milliseconds am I saving, because we all know those metrics about Amazon, where if they save 100 milliseconds they make whatever millions. That's his argument, right? What's your take on it, Chucho?
Well, just to clear this out, yeah, the argument is that people say that the website is slow because of the framework.
Right.
And that's is like okay, and he says that that is not true, and I agree. I agree that that it's not the fault of the framework. I think that the reason that this happens is because of other additional things that are happening inside the website. I love the way that he sees it. Like it's not the framework's fault, but rather the business model or the economy model or whatever model that we live in that we serve for. I used to work on a project that was fast, like really fast. If you look at the web score, it was almost 100%, and it was a complex website, and it was the one that we were using different techniques to try to make it as fast as possible. Deliver CSS delivery techniques, JavaScript. At one point, we thought about okay, maybe we can break out the JavaScript in several different files. We decided against it, but it was fast. But when you saw it in action, it wasn't. It wasn't fast, and it was the score wasn't as good, and you wondered why this was. And it was not because of the way that we used it, the way that we built it. It was because of the all the additional things that we had to add and support. Like for example, just analytics, which doesn't add a lot, but it does make the website a little bit less faster, and personalization. You know, personalization is horrible in the sense it's super nice for the users that they give them a personalized experience without needing the having the need to log in, because that's the easiest way, and that doesn't hinder it. But it gives you the very personalized user experience, but it can make the website slow.
Totally, man. It's hard for us in the enterprise world to fight against analytics and personalization because, of course, clients, they want to monetize their websites. They want to know how their ads are doing or how the offers are doing, and they need to actually know about the stuff. And usually, in the default go-to scenario is okay, Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics, and those are very like heavy, right? When you load them on the page, sure, there are newer tools or ways to load it, but eventually you do whatever you do as a front end, and then on top of that you load a bunch of other stuff that makes the web slower. I sort of agree. Going back to the framework decision,
Hmm.
in the end, it's probably the developer or the team who maybe doesn't do a correct job of optimizing the application based on the framework. Sure, yes, a vanilla React or vanilla Vue or vanilla Svelte, it has different weight.
Hmm.
Yes, agreed. But when it comes to when you already have a bunch of components and all the things, it probably it's not such a big difference. What it matters most is how you do it, how you build it, how you deliver it to the user, and all those things, right? So yeah. In the end, I'm more of a when it comes to framework decisioning. If you're a tech lead or an architect, in the end, you got to take into consideration more stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
what are you building? What are the requirements? How is your team? Who's going to maintain this? Right? I mean, is your team proficient in Angular? Then you shouldn't look any further. I mean, just go with Angular, right?
Hmm.
Or if your team just know Vue, why change? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And as you say, sometimes it's not about the tool that you use, but how you use it. Sometimes, if you're building a very simple website that maybe it's just links to between, I don't know, articles and such, you really don't need something like Angular, or you don't need a framework. But there's people that by default learn to create websites through using frameworks, and that's where they go to. They like, oh, I know this tool, I'm going to use it. And that does make the websites, that could be a problem, but the problem is not the framework, but people using the framework when they shouldn't be using it, for example.
so nice that you mentioned that people, if you're just building a simple website, maybe you don't need JavaScript at all. So the next point on his video is 0 kilobytes JS is not a goal. So meaning that we shouldn't aim for delivering no JavaScript to the end user. But again, all frameworks or all tools that we use nowadays, they deliver some default JavaScript bare minimum stuff, right?
Yes, and this is something that I don't agree completely. But what do you think about this? Do you think that we should go aim for a 0 kilobyte world or not?
I mean, we have to be real. So usually, at least what we do at Content Centric, it's just not possible, right? We don't build like static websites with just text and 3 images.
Mm.
Usually, we have websites that have user interaction, complex forms, web applications in general, where you need to log in, you need API calls, and then definitely those need JavaScript. I mean, and trying to go to zero JavaScript, sure. I mean, I do that on my side project when it's just presentation. It's just a HTML page, no JavaScript, and I'm super happy. But for mid-sized web applications, it's just impossible, right?
But I mean, and sometimes I think that we should aim not to zero JavaScript, but we should aim to try to deliver as less JavaScript as possible. Not because of trying to figure out how to avoid it, but just because it's a good practice. It makes it a better experience for the user. And sometimes there's JavaScript that you might not need at one given moment, and it also depends a lot on the type of website that, once again, that you're trying to build. There's a lot of frameworks out there, for example, or techniques that use very little JavaScript, and that you can use depending on if it makes sense, and sometimes they do. And then there are others that other websites that rely heavily on JavaScript, and it's fine. You don't not need to make a website that it's completely resilient. Although, as we've discussed previously, it does make, if you try to aim for for example, a progressive enhancement approach, it does help you build more resilient websites, and it does, I think, it does reduce the amount of JavaScript in the end that you deliver.
Nice,
I
nice, nice plug to episode 15, progressive enhancement.
I do think that there are websites that should be made that should work without JavaScript, especially those that the functionality is quite simple and that the JavaScript should enhance it. I mean, I do believe this, but I don't think that we should worry too much about, oh, it has to, we should make it work 100% without JavaScript. It's like, it's nice, but at least you should, depending on the website, you should try to make it available without JavaScript. But I mean, I don't think it's
That's
100%.
fantastic. You already step into the next bullet point of his video, which is, quote unquote, most sites should work without JavaScript. Yes, I mean, no, it's complicated. I think I agree with you that, for instance, like a newspaper should be like a damn paper newspaper. Like you should just load up a blank HTML, some text on it, which is the article, and you're done. But nowadays, you go to the Guardian, BBC, whatever it is, and it's just videos playing, ads, and everything is just JavaScript everywhere. The famous paywalls, and then it's it's the complete opposite of what it should be. Just load the article and you're done.
I agree, but this is the paradox of the hammer paradox. I don't know if that's the official name of it, but basically is that when you have a hammer, every problem seems like a nail. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and you try to use the hammer in such a way. And this the same thing happens with development. If you learn how to develop websites using JavaScript, you think that it has to be used every single time, and that is not true. I mean, there are times that you do need JavaScript, especially when you're trying to build like highly interactive applications or things that are very app-like. But then a lot of the sites that you go to, they don't really need JavaScript, and you should try. I think that for these, you should try to make it work without JavaScript as much as possible, but you should not worry about not being able to work without JavaScript. The reality of the web today is that we can work without JavaScript. In the previous episode, I told you that, for example, there are on my phone. I try to navigate precisely because of the limitations of speed. I try to navigate without JavaScript because I try to download only things that I need to read. And most of the websites that I visit are websites that don't need JavaScript really. And I hate it when I find a website that does that. It's like, oh, you don't have a JavaScript and you cannot use it, but I just want to read an article. What do you mean I need JavaScript?
yeah. No, I think you're totally right. We need to re-educate like the new developers at the start with boot camps and stuff. Where okay, let's build a website, and then they will quickly do new React application or new Vue app, and they use the CLI to just bootstrap a web application with JavaScript that hey, you don't even know what the website is about, and you're already doing a full-on SPA framework, right? So maybe just start with HTML as we did in the last episode, and enhance. So I totally agree with you, man. Next bullet
One,
point. Yeah, go ahead.
wait. I would like to go back to this, and it
Sure.
does move on to the next point that he talked about, which is during this part of the talk, he says that, for example, he talks about techniques like server side rendering.
Right. Hmm.
For me, things like server side rendering are just fixes to problems that didn't exist before you created a tool. You know, it's like, oh, we create SPAs, and suddenly you have an issue that you solve with server side rendering, which was like, oh, you wouldn't have this issue if you didn't use an SPA, for example. And this does, I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand, we already have a way to we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel just to fix problems that we ourselves are creating. We already have a very established way of working with creating websites. But then on the other hand, I think that it's not bad to challenge the way that we work, try to find new ways to, because in the end, what we're doing is we're producing software, we're producing websites, and I find it interesting to start creating or challenging the way that we work, and maybe it's not that bad to have to reinvent the wheel sometimes just to make it work better. I don't know if that makes
No, no, no. I mean,
sense.
absolutely. I think innovation is necessary, like, and especially in the front end world, where yes, a new framework every 3 weeks. But I think innovation is good because then we need to challenge ourselves, see if okay, what we did 10 years ago does it still work. For me, it's funny that we go back to the origin, right? So we started with just maybe an Apache server and then PHP or whatever, and then you would just deliver static HTML, of course, server-side rendered. And now we went to full-on JavaScript, and now they said, wait a minute. Maybe 10 years ago we were not super wrong. So now, as you said, we go back to server-side render as much as possible, so it's faster, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and the next bullet point is precisely this. He says that multi-page applications are dead, and I don't agree at all. Like, I mean, for certain use cases, sure. Like again, if you're talking about a web application or a dashboard where there's a bunch of JavaScript and adding client-side routing is just adding 20 kilobytes. Just sure, do client-side routing, and then you have a single-page application, no page loads, everything is already loaded. It's fantastic. But for other like regular marketing websites where you have image component, text component, and just one carousel, right? It doesn't make any sense for me to install a whole framework or a whole client routing when just changing pages with a server behind it. It just works fantastic and it's fast. So I don't agree.
No, I'm with you in this sense, but my the way that I would go, I don't know if this was just to be a little bit of a, to say something controversial, just
Maybe it could be,
to
could be.
could be, because in the end, once again, there's no saying that MPAs are dead and you need and only SPAs should keep on living. That means that there's this one solution that would cover all use cases, and that is not true. That's one of the fantastic things about the web, that there's so many uses. The imagination is the limit. We have things from very simple text based pages to something that is super 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 complex, and let's not forget about accessibility and this kind of stuff. But in any case, I think that SPAs serve a specific purpose and NPAs serve another specific purpose, and they're not necessarily in conflict. You can do an SPA and NPA, or I think that Richard Harris called it some time ago a transitional app, which is something like in the middle between one or the other. Not entirely sure about the term, but in any case, I think that you need to know what's the philosophy between one, what's the philosophy between the other, find what are you trying to build, and then choose which one it is the one that you want to go through. But
Yeah, it felt like this argument was very like biased or very like scoped to certain like a web application. Like you were talking about Google Calendar, you're talking about Gmail, right? Of course, those are web applications that, of course, they should be sort of single page applications and no page loading in between them and all those things. But when it comes to the other 80% of websites in the world, I mean, JavaScript. Going back to what he said before, that maybe zero JavaScript, all those things, right? So for me, it's I don't know. It's yeah. What else is here? Next bullet point. Just for FYI for those listening, we have skipped some of these his takes that we didn't have much opinion on. We didn't want to go into deep. So if you see that we're gonna talk about everything, just FYI.
I before we move to the, well, I think it's a little bit related again to the topic that we're going to talk about right now. But one thing that I think that we maybe also should challenge the once again, not only the way that we build things, but we also challenge the tools of the technology that we're using to build these things. Right now the web browser has its own limitations, but I think based on the things that we need them to, or the things that we're doing on web browsers and how we're pushing the things that we can do there, maybe we should adapt or add additional features to a web browser. Maybe features that would allow us to, for example, let's say you have an SPA. If you have a, let's say, a website that it's a newspaper, and you're navigating there, you're reading a one article, and you want to go to the next article, and usually, like, if we're not using JavaScript or anything fancy, you click on the article, the page loads completely. And one of the things that he was arguing against the MPAs was that you have to reload everything. You have to reload all the containers, the header, the footer, or all the rest of these kind of things. One solution is to use, for example, without going full SPA, just using simple things like Ajax, and just bring the article that you need, and you just replace the location of the article. But we're using JavaScript in order to do, like, okay, I need only one part of the a page. I use JavaScript, and the backend needs to be prepared for this, or maybe not. We can maybe solve it in the front end. But what if we think about, okay, I know that I have this template and I use it over several pages. How about when I click on a link and I only want to return part of the page, because that's the only part that I'm going to refresh? I go to the server and I say, hey, I would like this next URL, but if possible, only this section. And that the browser, that the server actually responds returning only that section, and the browser itself, without any JavaScript, updates that area of your page that has a very specific ID with what it got, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, you can even go simpler. In the end, he doesn't mention any caching at all, and you could be super aggressive when it comes to asset caching, right? So JavaScript is cached in the browser. Just CSS is cached in the browser. Sure, when you load the next page, you will have a repaint of the whole thing, but you probably will not download any new asset. So you will
Sure.
have all the JavaScript, you have all the CSS. Okay, you will download images for the article and the actual HTML. So I mean, how slow can that be? I mean, if you sure you have servers on the edge, CDNs everywhere, it's not slow. So for me, I don't see a problem. I mean, I agree with you that browsers need to keep pushing for more like front end magic to WebAssembly now and all those things on the web, and it's crazy and it's good. But also go back to the origin. Go back to the origin of cache everything aggressively and just download a small HTML. I mean,
Amazon is super fast once you load it the first time. When you
right?
load it the first time, it's a bit slow, But after that, every time that you go there, I usually find myself typing, hitting enter, and then looking away and looking back, and I get surprised like, oh, the page is already loaded.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
And they have, of course, AWS, and probably they have a data center in your basement, so on every country, right? So in the end, the latency to your server to the edge is super super fast, and yeah, I mean, it can be done, right? It can be done. No SPAs, and look at Amazon. I mean, it's one of the top brands in the world. We'll talk more about Amazon later on the next bullet points. Okay, so next, it's he says that code should run close to the user, in the sense that we shouldn't be sending stuff to the server when it's not necessary, that we should process as much data as possible in the front end. And so the UI or the interactions are very snappy, very fast, very responsive. If you click a button, you shouldn't have to wait for the server to respond you with something, but if possible, make it all in the front end and make it more fast overall.
Well, that sounds a lot like an SPA. You know, in the end, that's what the philosophy that he's aiming for, in a way, that bring everything to the browser and let the browser do. I mean, in the end, it's loading a full application in your web browser, and right now I don't know, but right now the computer, especially because we're talking about phones, portable devices that are not as powerful as a desktop and are not as fast. The connection is not as fast as a desktop, and also we have places in the world that do not have latest technology or latest connections, web speeds, or so on and so forth. And you simply cannot do this yet. Maybe in the future, maybe this is something that you could aim for, but right now, I don't agree
Yeah,
completely
and
with
his
this.
examples were a little bit fishy because he was showing that, okay, GitHub, when you type your comment and then you preview the comment is written in Markdown, that is sent to the server to return HTML so you see the preview. And sure, there are front-end libraries that can render Markdown in the front end, but then you have to send them to the client and you have to download them. So it's sometimes it's a trade-off between, okay, do I send more kilobytes of JavaScript to the end user, or I just do an AJAX request and wait for the user for 1 second until he see the results. That's interesting. Well, going to the SPAs and MPAs, back to Amazon topic. You buy on Amazon, I buy on Amazon every week for sure. When you go to a detail page and you click the big yellow button on the right side that says add to cart, what happens? There's a full page load. There's no Ajax, there's no on behind magic stuff. I mean, I'm surprised that Amazon, with all their data science and experts and UX and UI, they chose this approach that when you are on a detail page and you click add to cart, it goes to another page. So maybe it's not that bad if they use it, right?
No, they must know what they're doing, and as you said, they're probably using just a very aggressive caching approach so that they can do this kind of thing. You've already loaded all you maybe that you need to load, and boop, go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen that in some listings, there's Ajax request where you add to cart and it immediately shows to the cart. But on the main detail page, at least for Amazon.es on the Spain side, it's a full page reload, and I was surprised to if they do it. maybe maybe they know.
There's a reason, yes.
On things making the web faster. Next bullet point on his video is build steps are good. Do you like build systems, Chucho?
I hate build systems.
Ha! Okay, so it's me and Rich Harris against Chucha. Okay, okay.
No, 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 no. You misunderstand me. I hate build systems, but I think that they're necessary. But
Here's the key point. Yes, totally. I mean, fight me any day, anywhere. But I think build systems are super necessary, right? Even inside projects. I mean, in my case, when I build something small and there's just a small JavaScript, I always drop in like ESBuild. ESBuild is super fast. It's super simple. It's just a one-liner in my package JSON and one-liner in the command. No config files, no anything, and I get free minification, free tree shaking, and it's just fantastic. So I do love build systems. Doesn't have to always be Webpack. I know Webpack is a pain and it's super hard to configure, but yeah, I mean, minifying locally and serving less JavaScript or less CSS, why not?
and not only that, but it's also development. It's part of the development. It's depending on how you build your end product, it can be part of the development process. Like for example, if you're working, I don't know if we've talked about post CSS and the things that you can do with it, but in the end, for example, you can build or create a lot of plugins that can modify your code in order to when the deliverable code is something that you don't need to worry about while you're developing. So I think it's a very important part of development. It can add a lot of value. It can simplify development itself for people. You don't have to worry about that. For example, a very simple example would be, besides minification and this kind of thing, is a CSS support to certain browsers. You can just let that be handled by the build system. That, okay, I'll just write normal CSS, standard CSS, and the build system will know, oh, you're trying to use this. Well, Edge doesn't support it, or, well, I don't know, with this browser doesn't really support it yet. So I'm going to add the prefixes and these kind of things. But you don't really have to worry about it. It's one less
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you
worry.
remember back in when autoprefixer didn't exist, and you had to remember, okay, this is a MOS prefix, this is
Yes,
a MS prefix,
yes.
a WebKit, and now it's. I mean, for years we haven't had to do that, so it's fantastic. Same with JavaScript, right? You can write the latest and greatest ES
Mm,
2022, and then have Babel just transpile it to whatever browsers you need to support, right? And
mm,
and it's there. I think with anything like the same with when we talk about frameworks and knowing how to code, you also need to know what you're doing with the build system,
mm.
because you can over engineer. You can just say, yes, on every commit fire 3000 types of validations and checkings, and you have the servers just consuming carbon and just doing stuff for no reason at all. So just
Mm.
know what you're doing, know when to apply the build system. But yes, probably if I have it.
Oh, and this is one of the topics that, as you said, well, I mentioned I don't like build systems, but I think that they're very important, and especially there's a lot of benefit that you can get from them with very little effort
Yeah,
on your side.
agreed. Agreed. And the last bullet point on his video is none of this matters. He talks about AI. He says that we should just enjoy developing websites while we can. And I've noticed that we haven't tackled any AI and code helpers or anything related on this podcast before. So should we?
Well, I think we should, but in a way, we haven't talked about this because at least the way that I feel is every week you have something new. Every other week
It's
you
true.
you you learn something that now they're doing this, now they're doing that. We were talking just this precise week where we're talking about a new website that it helps. It's not ChatGPT, but something else that helps you, as that is oriented specifically for developers. Like, you look for it and it gives you solutions, not only based on the information they have, but it also looks in other websites. And I mean, for sure, AI is going to be here to stay. There's things that we need to learn. Like, for example, prompting is going to be something.
Prompting. Oh my goodness! I thought you were
Yes.
going to say like ethics of coding or things like that.
Nope.
No, prompting. Just learn how to
Prompting.
prompt.
Yes, I think it's going to be an important tool. Just uh, the same as learning how to search for the solutions when you're,
Yeah,
because this is something
agreed.
that we do, and I think prompting is also going to be something that we're going to do, especially as AIs become more part of the development process. Just like build systems, for example, AI could be part of build a build system in the future. I don't know. It is wild what's happening in the development world. I don't think that it doesn't matter. I know that he mentioned this as a controversial point,
Yeah.
but it's worth going deep into this. I mean, this is a very interesting topic.
Okay, then I'll tell you what. Let's do that for the one of the following episodes. I
Mm,
think on the time of the writing, on the same day when we're recording this, we there's a Google I/O happening, so probably we'll have more AI stuff. So yeah,
mm.
let's do an episode on status quo, what you can do with AI and code
I like
code
it.
stuff, code copilots, and yeah. We're done. We're through. Chucho.
Oh, mm.
Christmas Coffee Man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricardo. Was swallowing the coffee.
The
Sorry.
coffee. It's more than fine, man. I'll see you in the next Frontend Coffee Break.
See you then at coffee break. Bye.